Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy Valley Part 4. As I promised, in this video we're going to be working on the other side of the main street, and I'm not going to be cutting out any of the buildings in this video. I will still cut out some of the more boring bits, especially doing the backstage stuff that I still had to do by adding the grey walls and all of the grey roofs and the ACs and HVACs and all that. But pretty much every facade that you actually see from the park itself and all of the detailing on the main street is going to be done in this one episode. So, the first thing that I wanted to do is get kind of a counterweight to the building that I had on the right side already. And what I had as a plan for quite a while here was to get another very similar dome, basically just copy over the dome but put different textures and colors on it. And make the street very symmetrical in that sense, have two domes on two corners and have like the two central towers all the way at the end of that street as you look onto the main street. But I didn't end up really going with that plan, and instead I want to make it look a bit more asymmetrical and a bit more playful. So we're going to go with a castle on this side, or at least a castle inspired building. It's mostly inspired by Schwerin Palace in Germany. Excuse my pronunciation, but it's basically this beautiful palace somewhere in northern Germany. Supposedly it has the nickname to be the Northern Neuschwanstein, which, if you don't know, is the castle that inspired the Disneyland castle. So getting some inspiration from good places there, and while it definitely won't be similar in any kind of structural way and it still has a different color scheme, I'm hoping to go for that sort of same general atmosphere to it, with a lot of the emphasis on very large towers on the corner of the building, because I really needed something of a large castle tower on the corner here to sort of give the counterweight to the very large and like central dome of the building on the other side. So we have the dome on one side and we have the tower on the other side, and the rest of it is all just really playing with a lot of detail and whatever else I wanted to do with this building. It's gonna be quite a large building. I think it will be the largest building on the entire main street, not counting the entrance building, and it'll have quite a few towers on it, but I did want to keep it somewhat modest, since this is obviously not going to be the big castle in the park and it shouldn't draw too much attention. So while it definitely has some of the like typical big fantasy castle things to it, I still wanted to keep it quite simple so that it could still fit into the main street. And yeah, that's why I figured I would do it this way, with very simple walls and most of the details and the accents really on the towers on the corners of all of those walls. And especially in this building, having that trick of keeping the walls apart all the way at the side there, and just making a couple different versions of that with different heights and details on it. It really helped to save a lot of time on this building. It was built in a shorter time than I really imagined it would take, so I'm quite happy with how that worked out. But it definitely is very similar on all of the different sides, so the towers also kind of help to get rid of that sort of repetitive look to the building. Now obviously, since this is also a main street, well, not very obviously, but since this is a main street and this tower does have some sort of front facade, which I wanted to get a store into, I also wanted the building to open up a little bit, and like many castles, they have these very long, tall, vertical walls, but nothing that really invites you into the building on all sides. I really wanted some sort of very large balcony that would go around the corner of the building, so that's what I'm working on the bottom there, and which I'll return to in a little bit right now, which is going to be like the biggest sort of front part of the building. It's quite similar actually to what you see on many of the many of the Main Street USA buildings actually have that as well. That part that sticks out and has these arches, which just makes the building a bit more inviting. And I'm working on that right here, which is basically a combination of a bunch of different objects. Nothing too special, but definitely also a good way to get some different colors in here. I was hoping that with the very white colors on these arches, it would stick out quite a lot, and also get some different colors into the building, because the accents and the color of the walls are all quite similar on the building, so without all of the white here, it doesn't have too many different colors on it, so I was quite happy with how that turned out as well. And that basically more or less finishes the front like archways. And the rest of the work that I still wanted to do was a bit of final details to make it look like it's actually finished. I think this might also be a very good building to turn into a blueprint at some point and actually have details all around it. But since this is for the main street, it's not going to be like a full castle, and it'll really only be the front facade of it and the parts that you can actually see from the paths that I'll really work on, but the rest will just be backstage stuff, basically. Now, one final tower over here, because this is going to be another corner, because the building next to this is gonna sit back into the wall quite a bit, with a small balcony to make that look a bit more inviting as well, is more or less what finishes off the shape of the building. I actually think this is the second to last tower. Yeah, this is the second to last tower. The last tower we'll get into in a little bit, which should hopefully finish and round off the building on the other side as well, which is, for me personally, it's also quite important since I have no idea how I'm actually going to transition from the main street into the other areas of the park. And I will still have to work on that at some point in the future, and I'm not really sure if I'll have just like a simple sort of transitioning area without any buildings, or if I'll do it very Phantasialand-ish. One of the things which I love about Phantasialand is just how compact the park is, and just every single available square meter is just filled to the brim with all kinds of scenery, and there are no like sort of transition areas as you would have in Disney. So whether I'll have the transition areas or not, I'm not really sure yet, so I'm hoping to close off these buildings and make sure that they're gonna be working whatever way I'll be working the pathways around them. And finally, of course, I did want to put something inside this building since it is quite a very grand building, and as much as I kind of wanted to put the shop, which is a Chief Beef shop right here, as much as I wanted to put that in the front, in like the diagonal part where you would usually see the entrance of a building like this, it just doesn't really work out with having that round tower, and I definitely wanted the round tower to run all the way till the end. So it's on the side here, but I'm trying to at least make the facades on the side as open as I can, so that's why there are Chief Beef signs around the entire building to kind of make it look like it's a restaurant where you could possibly get in on all sides. And quite a lot of foliage should make that look a bit more inviting as well. And that more or less finishes off the bottom of this building. And I think that is almost it for this building as well. And it's about time to move on to the next one after I copy over a couple of these lamps, which I might get back to in the future. I might put some hanging baskets with flowers on these lamps. We'll see about that. Now onto the next building, which is going to be an Alpine building, which is quite funny. I was, well, really doubting if I wanted to do this for quite a while, since I already have an Alpine building almost, well, directly in front of this building on the other side of the main street. And they are going to be pretty similar, so it's not the most different thing. And I was really trying to make like all of the buildings on this side of the main street kind of like different variations of the buildings that I already have on the other side, but this is maybe a bit too similar, so we're gonna throw in some other fun stuff on this building. And one of the things which I wanted to try is have a porch in front of it with like vines and a lot of bushes on top of that to kind of make this natural, natural kind of bush roof on the front of this building. And this is going to be the toilet building, because I'm putting toilets in all of my Alpine buildings in this park so far. So we're going to keep that rolling. And yeah, the approach otherwise is quite simple, which I always do love about Alpine buildings. They are quite simple to do if you kind of get the hang of them. They never really have too complicated shapes or anything. It's just a lot of white stucco walls with the wooden framing on top of it, and that usually just finishes it off with a overhanging roof, and that's pretty much good in all cases. So I'm following the same theme here, but I was using the planks kind of like sunken into the wall because they're a little bit less thick than the pillars and the regular use of the planks, and I'm quite happy with how that looks as well. You can just fit in a few more planks and a bit more detail if you make the planks a bit smaller that way. And just adding a bit of foliage there with some vines on the side and a few of those hanging bushes to kind of make it look like they're really climbing up the pillars for a little bit and falling down from the ceiling in a way. And quite happy with how that foliage thing works. In a way, having those like the overgrowth of vines and bushes all over a building is a very sure and easy way to make sure that it's gonna be looking like a charming building. But we're already moving on to the next one, which is going to be a slightly castle-themed building. Again, very similar to the building on the other side, but this one will definitely have a different color scheme and different kind of details on it. So even though it's the same general idea, it should hopefully be able to stand on its own quite well. And the first thing that I wanted to do here is be a bit more playful with the general layout of the building than the one on the other side. The other one building is just like a straight facade with straight walls and a gallery underneath that. And this one at least has a bit of an L footprint to it to make one part stick out a bit more, and have part of the like gallery way which I have underneath it also sort of support a balcony on the first floor. So we're having that, and also I wanted to go with a dome on top of this building instead of a tower, which is quite funny in a way as well, because if you look like from the lake at the main street, you'll be seeing a tower, basically from left to right, you'll be seeing a tower and then a dome and then a tower, and from right to left you'd be seeing a dome and then a tower and then a tower, which sounds like it's bullshit and nothing really important, but I had that dome on the right side, and I just wanted to feature one in one of the buildings on the left side as well, so that's what we're going for here. And it's just one of these standard in-game domes, but I added those quick black trims on it, which I actually quite like. I think one of the things which I really love about those dome pieces is, even though they're not very versatile, and at least as of now they're not recolorable, you can like mix them with so many different pieces to create very unique domes or towers. That's what I had a little bit of an experiment with here, and that's definitely a piece which I'm going to use quite a bit more in the future. But yeah, one thing which I also wanted to do with this building is get a few more interesting colors in here. So far this side of the main street doesn't really have much of the bright colors, which the other side of the main street already does have. So I want to take that green color and not just have it come back in the color of the dome, but also have it come back in the color of the windows and some of the accents, which right now might be looking like it's not the best idea while I'm doing all of these beige accents, cornerstones and trims on the building itself to make sure that it's all ready to add the windows and other details. But it's actually something which I'm quite happy with in hindsight. I didn't plan to do it all the time, but as soon as I got those windows in and they're pretty much just the same color as the other accents, I think it was quite a good idea to add windows with a different color as well. Now, I was still struggling with the dormers for a bit. To be honest, I think there isn't really a good choice in dormers in the game so far. There are just a few of them, and many of them don't really fit into any theme that easily. And what I might just do in the future to make my life a bit easier is just make blueprint domes, or blueprint dormers. Though blueprint domes is actually a pretty good idea as well. And just get a bunch of different styles that I would like to use more often in as like blueprints, because having to make all of these separate dormers can be pretty time consuming, and as much as I do like the current ones in the game, they're not as versatile and not really usable in all of the styles that I would like them to be usable in. But yeah, one of the other things which I wanted to get into, of course, are the windows on this building, and I wasn't really sure how many of the windows I really wanted to, but in the end I ended up with having 2 in the front there and 2 in the back with like slightly different distances between them, which is a little bit awkward, but I kind of do like the effects and the way that it looks in the end. And slightly more simple windows on the tower, and that should finish off basically the rest of the building. And finally, I wanted to do what I can't stop doing, and I might want to stop doing this at some point in the future, because I am definitely going to overuse those pieces. Adding those roof pieces, the golden roof trims on top of the roof here, which is just, I know I use it a lot, it's just something which I really love, and I've tried some different fences on top of the roofs to get the same kind of effect, but none of them really have that golden texture and, well, an almost fantasy feel to it either that this one has. And now the final touches and details to make the building come alive. As you can see, it is now a Cosmic Cow milkshake shop, and I'm adding a bunch of window boxes to add a bit of foliage to the building, make it look a bit more inviting. And that more or less finishes this building, and I think it's time to move on to the next one. Alright, so the next building is going to be one very small and simple building, and it's kind of like the counterpart of the very small and simple building on the other side as well. It's just 2 squares wide, and a very simple hip roof, and a very simple cornice underneath it as well, and just plopping some random windows on it. I have to be honest, this is pretty much just a filler building in every sense of the word. I just needed to get this space filled up, and to get 3 buildings in this would have been way too tight, but to get 1 building in this space wouldn't really fit, since it would be way too large of a building. So I'm just getting this very small building into this corner so that we can work on the next building, which is going to catch a bit more attention. It's going to be a bit larger and in a style which I haven't really done so far in the park, and hell, which I haven't really done that often at all. We're going to be building a quick English Tudor kind of townhouse on this side here, with like some of those very dark brown archways underneath it, and on the real Tudor part with all of the framework we're going to have some white stucco and black framework, which is going to be very dense and have all of these large roof shapes on top of it as well. So getting the gallery in there and playing with the roof for a little bit, I figured it would be best to get that steep roof in all the way, since it has that very steep sort of curved angle that I wanted to go for, and make a bit of a custom dormer kind of roof gable that sticks out on the front to get some windows that really pop out of the building. And that's basically the general shape of it. It's a pretty flat building, but it's still made out of 2 separate buildings to be able to have the front that comes out a bit more than the rest of the building. And the rest of the framework is just, again, it's very easy to do, and I haven't really looked up any kind of Tudor references. I might have missed some like typical Tudor framing and done some things wrong in this case, which if I did, always feel free to call me out on it, but I was just kind of going for the general Tudor kind of atmosphere in this case, which meant a lot of very, very dense framework, much more dense than I have with all of the Alpine Building so far. The black color in there, and some of the very gothic looking windows as well. And I've tried, but it doesn't really work out to get some of those Tudor frame works in there, because Tudor frameworks, they often have curves and like very specific kind of details like Tudor roses in them, and it's practically impossible to really do that. There's probably a way to do it, but in this case I couldn't really be bothered to try it, so I just got a few very simple diamonds in there, almost like there's actually Tudor roses, and the rest of the building is just a lot of very heavy, dense framework, and that should finish that off quite nicely. And I think I remember making this, yeah, this is the information kind of building, since it is right at the entrance, and it's not the most like visible thing like burgers or milkshakes, which you want to have as visible as you can, because you do need to make a buck out of them, and well, that's how capitalism works. But we can get a bit of an information thing in here, close to the entrance, and not too much in the line of sight, but still in a way that you can quickly go to as you get into the park. So very quick information booth in here. It should finish off the Mainstreet. And the final things that I wanted to do is to get in a few of these planters that I have on the other side, trying to make all of the pathwork as symmetrical as I can, and a bunch of scenery over here as well, pretty much in the same way as the other side. A few barrels here, a few like pots and urns there, and a whole bunch of planters, and that should finish off the Mainstreet. So that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll leave you with some cinematic shots.